early American settler.
On their second attempt at settlement, the British brought a full fleet of families to colonize Roanoke. After 3 years, the colony was empty. All 90 men, 17 women, and 11 children were gone. There were no signs of fighting or fleeing. The people had just disappeared. I'm Jake Storielli, and this is Laughs from the Past.
There was one line there that you went a little like New Zealand on me.
Yeah, I got a little New Zealand.
Yeah.
I couldn't, my name doesn't translate to early settlers, so that was tough. But I thought parts of it were good.
Yeah, parts of it were good. Yeah, not bad.
I seemed pretty alarmed that people were missing.
Yeah. It definitely seemed like you were scared a little bit. Well, welcome back to Laughs from the Past, Season 3, Episode 2. Season 3 is Historical Mysteries. Last episode we did the Dyatlov Pass incident, which I really, really thought that was a really good episode. So hopefully we bring it again for this episode. Today we are doing the Lost Colony of Roanoke. If you're very new to the show, I do the research. I was a history major. I bring an interesting story to Jake, who's hearing it for the first time. I think, have you heard the Roanoke Lost Colony tale before?
I mean, I've heard stuff about Roanoke. I obviously know nothing about what actually happened or what we think happened, but
yeah,
90 guys, 17 women, decent ratio.
Yeah,
college party.
I when I'm doing research for these things and reading the books, I realize how much surface level like I knew. Like I just knew there was a colony and they came back to find and they were all gone. You know, came back to find them after a couple of years and they just no trace of them. The actual story here. And I'm a history major, and I love early American settlement up until, like, the Civil War. I love that stuff.
Sure.
A lot of this was interesting to me, so I tweeted it out. I highlighted, like, this whole book that I have. It's more like a pamphlet written by Charles Rivers, by the Charles River editors. So feel free to stop me whenever you were, like, need to discuss something
Whenever I feel
further.
there's a moment, okay.
All right, but basically we're in the late 1500s, okay? They've found America, but they haven't really done anything there yet. Britain, whoever's found America. And Britain and Spain are at war, Jake.
Okay.
And it's like a naval war. And basically they just keep taking over ships and looting them and killing ships in the sea. Like it never went to land. It was just like a naval war that kept going on forever.
Just boats on boats.
Boats on boats. I think they thought it was like kind of fake. Like if it came to land, they would be like, whoa. This was just a water thing.
Right. Like I'm feeling almost, I don't want to say Civil War vibes, but like almost fighting for fun, just to like fight.
That's what, from what I'm reading right now, is mostly just to fight and like steal treasure back and forth from each other.
Just like kind of build up ship prestige. I feel like that used to be a huge thing.
Yeah. Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like this ship has never been outrun. This ship has never lost a battle, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. So a lot of this was happening down on the coast of the South Americas and stuff like that. You know, that's where all the pirates and shit were. But so the idea of building an English colony at Roanoke in 1580 was the work of Sir Walter Raleigh, North Carolina. He was an English gentleman who had an ear of Queen Elizabeth. The proposed colony would serve two purposes. It would create an English foothold in North America and be a base from which English privateers could launch attacks against Spanish ships. So in essence, the English colonial policy in the late 16th century was heavily influenced by privateering activity. Privateering means go kill the Spanish ships and take all their money and treasure. Sure. So that was why Roanoke in this colony got even started. I think it was more for the privateering because there was money in that, and they were like, yeah, we'll build a colony too. That'll be nice. Get a foothold in case we ever send people to live there. So the first time they went, they sent people to kind of just discover it and not colonize it. So they sent.
And is this what we're talking about right now? This is the crew we're on? This is the first crew?
This is the first crew that went over there.
Okay.
This isn't the crew that disappeared.
It's not. Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah. They went over 3 times, 2 times an attempt to colonize it. This first time, they just went to scout it out. They're like, where's good land? What's the land like? What are the natives like? Blah, blah. So they sent these 2 guys, Barlow and another guy. What was his name? Amatus and Barlow. So they went and they go to the Outer Banks area, the Channel of Islands. And then they go past the Channel of Islands and they find Roanoke Island, which is in between the mainland and the channels. And they're like, this is the Garden of Eden. This is perfect. This is where we need to colonize it. And they landed and they said it was uninhabited. But when they did see natives in the area, they were quite friendly. Which is kind of odd to me. Like, that means it's like habitat, like people live there.
And I mean, we're talking Native Americans, right?
Yeah, Native Americans.
Okay, so we got some friendly Native Americans on the island of Roanoke. Sure.
Yeah, they were friendly. They were so much they were so friendly that 2 Native Americans went back to England with the Amatus and Barlow when they went back to England, which that's always blows your mind because you have the translation and the language and stuff. But they would learn each other's languages pretty easily. I don't even understand it, but
Yeah, I mean, you just said it. It blows my mind. I mean, I get 1 or 2 guys being into that and like learning the language because you have to communicate. And I mean, you just start out basic, right? Like each hold an apple in your hand and be like, "What do you call this?"
apple, chanqua,
What was that word?
chanqua. That's my Native American word for.
I was so excited to hear you make up the Native American word for apple.
Chanqua. Yeah.
It's not bad.
But like they're like this in this book, all it says is in addition to describing the natives as hospitable and friendly, Amadas and Barlow even brought 2 of them, Manteo and Wanchese, back to England at the conclusion of their expedition. Is that kidnapping? Like how? I can't imagine being a Native American and then going back to England where like there's, big ass buildings and you'd think you time traveled into like a different dimension or portal. Like it's so different.
Yeah, I mean, we give early explorers credit, even though now we're taking it all back on a lot of those guys because they were bad guys. I mean, the early Indians that would go back to Britain and stuff, yeah, that's insanity.
Crazy.
Like, those guys had some cojones.
That's why I think it was more kidnapping situation than like, yeah, I'm going to go back to England. Like, they were probably expecting it to be like what it is for them.
It was definitely like they need to return back to whoever they sailed for and prove they went to a foreign land and saw people. Yeah. And it's you're definitely right. It's somewhere in between kidnapping to who's going to step up and do it.
Yeah. All right. So that was the first peak. They went and scouted out. They found Roanoke Island. So this is beautiful. The second time in 1885, so it's like 5 years later now or a couple years later, the second expedition to Roanoke launched from England, but this time with far grander ambitions than the previous one. The expedition included 5 major ships and 2 smaller ships, and the fleet sailed from Plymouth to Canary Islands before making their way across the Atlantic to the West Indies and finally moving up the coast of North America to Roanoke, same way Amadas and Barlow had. There were 600 men on board the 7 ships, and roughly 100 of them would remain at the colony of Roanoke. They were all sailors and ex-military. And they were all men, basically, all right? But when they went there, so much stuff went wrong. First, a large storm hit the fleet in the West Indies, and they lost one of the small boats, forcing them to stop in Puerto Rico to reconstruct a new one. And while they were in Puerto Rico, they did some privateering while they were building the new boat, and they got rich off of it because, they pillaged some ships. They did some pirate stuff. But it took away time from the settlers setting up their colony, and winter's coming. So, they needed to get there and set it up, but this distracted them and took it up. They finally arrived on June 26 and almost immediately began to realize that the site chosen for colonization was not the fantastic place that had been described by Amadas and Barlow. Roanoke Island was surrounded by shallow sounds, which meant the larger ships in the English fleet were unable to anchor without the protection of the Outer Banks. The fleet found this out the hard way when the Tiger, at 160 tons, attempted to anchor at one location and was forced against the banks to such a degree that the sailors were afraid the ship would sink. They were able to save the Tiger, but lost most of the food supplies on board that were supposed to sustain the new colony. In the end, the larger ships were forced to anchor several miles offshore, which exposed them to the fierce Atlantic storms that periodically swept through the region. So far they can't anchor. Imagine the frustration there. Who chose this spot?
Yeah. We can't even do step 1 currently.
Yeah. This was real nice for your dinghies, Amados and Barlow, but we're trying to bring real ships in here. Then they lose half their supply of food. They don't have enough time to set up a colony. They don't have enough food now, and they can't even put their ships close by. Terrible. So thanks to the loss of food supplies suffered, the Greenville was faced with a crisis right away. So Raleigh and Greenville were the two guys that started this, and those are both places in North Carolina now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. Those
Greenville might be South Carolina.
In the Carolinas.
Yeah. That's where Greenville is where my buddy the Critter King lives.
Oh. Guy who stole your phone, Brad, Reptilian Brad.
Yeah, Brad the Reptilian King. So shout out.
Jake lost his phone at a concert once, and this guy got it and started texting our group message. He called himself Reptilian Brad, and he just constantly kept asking us if we owned any critters.
Yeah, when you say concert, it was a business trip, and I blacked out and left my phone at a bar, and this guy, Brad the Reptilian King, took my phone and just participated in my group chats.
Yeah, but instead of sending you your phone back, it was like, dude, can you send him his phone back?
And he was like, yeah, I'll do it on Monday. But it was like Friday. Like, come on.
Man. 3 days of just talking to this guy who had your phone.
Nice guy. Look him up.
You guys like critters? I got a lot of critters, mostly exotic. That's what he texted us.
Yeah. So
weird
little into my life. Greenville.
Since the supplies were already inadequate at this point, Greenville planned to take the fleet back to England and return the following year, because he couldn't even really use it as a privateering thing because they had to dock so much farther away. It wasn't even good for like a harbor for launching privateers. So he left. He was gone. So now it's just this guy named Lane and the colonists who stayed behind. They were tasked with finding a suitable harbor and site that would be more conducive to potential privateering activity. All right. Lane and the colonists at Roanoke constructed the colony utilizing a plan that the English had developed through their experiences in Ireland. The Bonny Village is what it's called, or Bon Village. In this plan, the main building was enclosed in a fort, but the colonists' houses were built outside of the protection of the fort. The colony's livestock would be driven into the fort each night, and in case of attack from Spanish or native inhabitants, the fort was large enough to hold all colonists. So they got a big square with walls. Everyone can go in there and if they want to have a slumber party, but everyone has their main house on the outside too.
And I mean, is everyone still friendly? Have we talked about any of that yet? Is it just settlers? Where are we at?
Yeah, so it's just the settlers, but they were told by Amadas and Barlow and the two Native Americans that went back to England that, we're friendly. Everyone's good. But what happened, Jake? So the one dude leaves, then they're left here. The colony's position could have been alleviated quickly because Raleigh had decided to send a second fleet in June to carry supplies to the colonists, so the fleet would have arrived at Roanoke right around the time Greenville departed, and it would have been both material well-being and it would have been good for the psyche of the colony, like they got reinforcements. Unfortunately, as the fleet was readying to set sail, Elizabeth diverted it to Newfoundland to warn English ships that their Spanish had begun to seize English vessels stationed around the Spanish anchors. A common theme in this whole story is that no one actually cared about colonizing Roanoke. They just cared about getting Spanish ships.
Right.
So it wasn't their main goal was to set up a harbor here so they can just launch ships and attack the Spanish and then go back and get some shut-eye and then go back out and attack the Spanish. So Greenville went back. He was like, I can't dock here. This is bullshit. He goes back to England. They're like, what's going on over there? He's like, it's all right. I mean, it doesn't really, it's not as cool as they said, but we did capture this ship called the Santa Maria on the way home, and there are tons of money there. And the Queen was like, all right, we're doing we're doing pirate shit.
Right.
Fuck those colonists. They can fend for themselves. So now nothing's helping these colonists. It's this guy named Lane, and he's got a bunch of guys there, and they now need to make friends with the Indians, the Native Americans, to help.
But do they know that? Like, did they ever get a message like, "Hey, nobody's coming back"?
They were told like it would be a year. Yeah, I guess. No, I don't know how they would, because if someone sent them a message, they'd be like, "We're here." That would be the message. That's crazy. It's crazy to think how this all happened. The colonists that went, Jake, they were given strict orders that they had to be nice to Native Americans.
It's good to hear after all these years.
Yeah, that they had good intentions at first.
Yeah.
So there was provision. So they would punish colonists who acted violently against Indians. For example, in cases of rape, the punishment was death. You rape a Native American, you have to die.
Fair.
While those forcing Indians to labor would be faced with 3 months of imprisonment. Oh, you're going to
Depends on the labor.
What's that?
You got to really put up a fence, and all you got is a couple natives around. I might take the 3-month penalty.
At least I got a fence out of it.
Got my fence, yeah.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting trade-off.
Right? Like, what's the line here? If you got to build your house before winter? I don't know.
What's 3 months imprisonment on the colony? You just go inside for all of winter?
We're struggling to build houses, but we built the prison already? Like,
yeah,
what do we believe in here?
Yeah, I don't know. But they did have those good intentions because most of the people were all religious and shit. Here's the bad part about this crew. Why they ruined relationships. Most of the colonists had experience as soldiers in the campaign against the Irish, where English tactics centered on the use of terror and violence to pacify local inhabitants. That always works, Terror and violence, that will get them to do whatever you want. So the Irish experience led ordinary English soldiers to believe the Irish were less civilized than the English and were not to be trusted. So if you're thinking the Irish are less civilized than you, then you go see Native Americans in loincloths. Like, what are you...
Yeah.
You've been trained to think that they're less civilized. So soon after landing at Roanoke, a situation arose in which, after a meeting with a village chief at the town of Sacoton, Greenville believed they had stolen a silver cup from the English's belongings. Greenville ordered his men to retrieve the cup, and when they were unable to locate it, they burnt and spoiled the Indians' corn and town. All the people weren't there, so they just burnt up the town. So like, hey, I think they stole a cup. Go get that cup back. And then no one's there. All right, let's just burn it down. So like, just step one, wrong, bad.
Yeah, it just seems like. I mean, what kind of cup are we talking about here?
Silver,
I mean, your
nice silver
basic,
cup.
Okay, silver cup, like real silver. But I mean, still one silver cup to burning down the village. We missed a couple steps.
Yeah, they're a little hostile.
Yeah.
So the whole thing was like they were going to get goods from the Indians and switch back and forth, which actually benefited the Indian tribes. So they kind of liked being there. But then the English back home in England started taxing the colonists so much that they were like, this isn't worth it anymore. So it was like tough times for these Lane and his men, these ex-soldiers who were trying to colonize this land and had nothing. So one of the translators died, okay, that they had. They had 2 translators. They were 2 brothers. One of them died. And the second one, Wingina, I don't know how to pronounce his name. He announced to the English that his name was now Pemisipan. He's like, got a new name, okay? Call me, I'm not Wingina anymore, I'm Pemisipan. It's unclear why Wingina changed his name upon his brother's death, but it could have been that Wingina developed a war name in preparation for a military engagement versus the English. So now it seems like maybe it was a hostage situation.
Say those names again?
Dude, it's hard. Wingina. Wingina would be the Americanized way to say it.
Okay.
And the other one is Pem, Isa, Issa, Pan, Pemisipan.
Pemisipan.
Yeah.
Just want to go by a regular name for once.
So anyway, this dude, Pemisipan, he's bad news for the colonists. And he was their translator. The colonists were not aware that Pemisipan was preparing to declare war on them. And the colony's leader, Ralph Lane, even consulted with him about whether or not to go to the mainland to meet the chief of the Roanoke Indians, a man named Menatonon. So they're about to meet up, right? And Pemisipan is with Manitoban, and they're like, let's kill these whiteys. Like, let's sneak attack them. Before that happens, Lane double-crossed them all. He kidnaps Menatonon, the leader of the Roanoke tribe, brings him back to Roanoke, and holds him hostage for 2 days. So Lane pulled like a badass switcheroo.
Yeah. Beat him to the punch.
Yeah.
I'm going to kidnap you. No. I'm going to take you, dog.
You're mine. The English held him for 2 days until they worked out a settlement in which Menatonon's son, Skiko, was substituted for the Roanoke chief and sent to be a prisoner of the English. So the chief is like, take my son. He's worthless. He's not going to live up to my name. Make him be your prisoner.
Yeah.
They agree.
Good luck.
During his days of captivity, Menatonon seemed to be cooperating with the English and told Lane about resources that the English might be interested in. He told him about 2 sites. One he told him was interested in it. One he told him by the Chesapeake Bay. It was in deep water. There was lots of land and stuff and all that good stuff. The second site he told him about was a mine to the west in which there were deposits of kinds of copper and very soft and pale, which Lane was like, okay, we'll take the copper, because he was like, that may be gold.
Right.
When I read this, it blew my mind that the Native Americans like found copper and were making copper things.
Yeah, well, you've seen the Copper Fit commercials. Those help the body. What, Jim, mark your spot right now, because I have a severe tangent.
Okay.
You mentioned the Indian chief giving away his son.
Yes.
There's a lot of Game of Thrones people out there, I'm sure, that know, Theon/Reek. He was given to the Stark family. We had the, what's her name? Cersei's daughter goes to Dorne and all that stuff.
Uh-huh.
What the hell was all of that?
Why were you just giving your sons in your place?
What was the whole children exchange lifestyle about? That was supposed to be like the ultimate sign of respect?
Yeah, well,
was it the opposite end of the spectrum? Like, we have your kid for life now.
No, it was supposed to bond you and make you join forces, so when your child grows up, now you have a friendly ally. Like, that's why you would marry off people.
Work? Did that ever work?
Probably not. But yeah, maybe times it worked, but
okay. I just that's what was going on up here. And
yeah, I don't know the hit rate. It does seem weird.
Super odd.
Very odd, yeah.
And like these weren't like, okay, what if something like this happened nowadays, and it was like, I'll say Obama because people get mad about the other name, but what if Obama was like, hey, me and France and us are working on our relations. One of the girls is going to go live over there for 4 years. I feel like that would almost be cool now, but back in the day when, like, I don't know, people just killed the king, like, seems like a terrible idea.
Does seem like a terrible idea.
I need someone to get me some old hit rates on that.
Yeah. What if Obama sent, like, just his dogs now? Take my Portuguese water dog. Watch it for a
Yeah, if he sent them to Portugal, I guess there's some humor there, but I don't know.
All right, so Lane's going to go try and find this copper field, right, to help survive and live. Pemisipan learns of his expedition. He sends messengers to the Indians along Lane's route, warning them that the English plan to kill them all. So this Pemisipan dude is a real thorn in the colonist side. There's a real jerk. Hey, the English are coming. No, they're just looking for some copper, you dummy. Not trying to kill everyone. So when they get there, all the Indian villages, instead of fighting against them, they just left. They're like, yo, Pemisipan told us these guys are going to come kill us. Do you want to stay and fight, or should we just like leave, let them pass by? They just left, let them pass by. But that was bad because they counted on getting food from Native American villages along the way so they could survive. They counted on trading with them, but there was none. So they were like faced with the question, do we keep going to find this copper, or do we just go back to Roanoke Island, back to our colony?
Right. When do you call it?
What's that?
When do you call it?
Yeah. Lane asked his men to decide. Okay. And whilst there was only left 1/2 pint of corn for a man, that we should not leave the search. They decided not to leave the search. Let's keep going. Things are looking great right now.
Yeah, we got this.
A short while later, the expedition encountered a group of natives who fired arrows into their boats and then left before the English could land their boats. This attack convinced Lane and his men that it was time to return to the settlement.
This was fun and all, but
yeah, I think they maybe don't want us doing this. Just light up the boats with arrows.
I'm starting to think we're not welcome.
The Roanoke stopped selling food to the colonists. The Roanokes is the name of the tribes there. The Roanokes stopped selling food to the colonists. They also destroyed the fishing traps they had set up for them. So when they came, they set up fishing traps. Like, this is how we fish. You can set these traps up too. And they're like, fuck that. We're out. You guys suck. Get off our land.
That's an awkward convo.
Yeah, you just see what are the guys doing out there? Are they helping us bring in the fish we just caught? Oh no, they're tearing down your nets. Tearing down your nets.
That's a good Jonah Hill scene with like his confused voice being like, so why did you break them?
Yeah.
You dislike us that much that you went out of your way to break the fish nets?
Seems like a lot of work.
It seems like way too much. Like, I get not liking us, but doing that.
So then Pemisipan and the natives are like, let's do it. They made a plan to execute Lane and his officers and then to signal a general attack against the rest of the colonists. They're like, this is it. Let's get these motherfuckers out of here. Pemisipan revealed the plan to Skiko, the son of Manitonin, who is now with the English, who he assumed he hated the English. Pemisipan was like, yo, Skiko, you hate these dudes too, right? And Skiko was like, nah, kind of like my dad. I don't like him. He just like gave me up. So I kind of like these guys. They're not bad.
Yeah, everything's good.
So Skiko tells Lane, he's like, yo, these Native Americans they're going war. They're going to try and kill all of you. So Lane planned to counter Pemisipan's plan by alerting the Roanokes that he was going to leave for one of the islands on the Outer Banks to look for imminent arrival of an English fleet. He's like, the English are coming soon, so we got to go make sure. You know, I got backup coming. Don't even ask any more questions. Just know that they're coming. He asked Pemisipan if they could borrow men to hunt and fish for him while he was away. While I'm gone, can you guys hunt and fish for my men? You know, so Pemisipan's like, this is perfect. We're going to go there. We're going to kill everyone. He's not even going to be there, blah, blah, blah. The next morning, Lane and 25 men went to confront Pemisipan. Pemisipan and his council agreed to meet with Lane, but once in the presence of the Indians, the English opened fire. Despite being surprised by the attack, Lane recalled that Pemisipan nearly escaped. So we're just at war, basically. The second attempt at colonizing, or first attempt at colonizing, it's just war. A week later, the English spotted a great fleet of 23 sails off the coast, which turned out to be an English fleet commanded by Sir Francis Drake himself. Drake was like, you didn't do shit. You don't have no food. You have no harbor. How am I going to unload all my ship's men to be at this settlement when you don't even have a settlement? You haven't done a thing.
There is no settlement.
Yeah. So Drake's like, yo, I can give you some food and some clothing as well as some sailors and boats, or you guys can just get on my boats and leave this place.
Yes.
That's not what the colonists said, Jake. You think it would be. Colonists decided the first option. Drake provided the colony with a 70-ton ship, the Francis, along with 6 other smaller boats and enough food for 4 months. On July 13th, however, a huge storm hit the Outer Banks, damaging some of the ships and driving the Francis, which contained a number of Lane's officers, as well as their new food supplies, out to sea. So they gave him a 70-ton ship. It's got all the food on there, and some men are hanging out on there. A storm comes, and it puts the ship out to sea because they have to dock on the other side of the channel because the very first people scouted the place wrong. When they're out to sea, the men, who they were colonists there, they know what the situation is. They're like, should we go back and make sure they get this food? Nah, fuck it. We're halfway there. Let's just go to England. They just
Yeah.
leave. So now all the food's gone again.
I'm all in on that team.
Yeah.
Know when to cut your losses.
Get out of there.
So wait, this colony, we haven't been able to do anything. We can barely dock up. We're already halfway home. Yeah, we're out of here.
Yep. Yeah. So they just left. Drake agreed to take the colonists back to England, and they departed so quickly that the colonists apparently left 3 men who were on a mission to the interior, which possibly involved returning Skiko to his father. Several hundred slaves who Drake had taken from the Spanish during the raids were also left to make room for the colonists to be housed within the fleet. So when that ship left, Drake was still there, and he was like, come on, guys, let's just go. And everyone's like, all right, yeah, we're going. There's no food, we're going. They take some Spanish slaves, put them on the land, and some other people are on the land. And that ends the second time going to Roanoke Island, the first time at settlement. Just complete failure.
Been there.
But no disappearance. Complete failure. The Greenville supply ship landed at Outer Banks shortly after the colonists left.
Say that again?
the supplies came right after they were gone. And Greenville searched the colonists for the colonists. He's like, what the fuck? I just traveled all this way to bring you this stuff. I could have been out privateering. And now you guys all aren't here anymore? So he found no one there, and seeing that the settlement was desolate, he returned to England. However, Greenville decided to leave 15 men behind with 4 pieces of artillery and enough food to last them for 1 year. What kind of sick hell is that for those 15 dudes?
I mean, if it's your buddies, it's kind of a good time, right?
We're just going to... I don't know.
Back in that time period, if you've got food for a year... I mean, isn't that kind of the life? Weren't things very day-to-day back then?
I guess they were just, these 15 men were like, all right, yeah, we'll stay on this island. Give us some guns so we can defend ourselves. Give us some food, and we'll just fuck around for a year.
Kind of sounds like the dream back then.
So they go back to England, and it's like, okay, that sucked. That was bad. And they felt the only way it was worthwhile was if the colony found gold, or if they found the mythical Northwest Passage, which is so much more north than Roanoke Islands. That doesn't even make sense. But then one other dude was like, no, guys, it was promising. There's stuff for the textile industry. There's silk-like plants. There's we can make silk like in Persia. We don't have to trade with the Persians anymore. There's promising medicines. He's like, we just kind of fucked up. But the land offered some things. So the queen's
Land's still mint.
What?
Land is still prime.
Yeah. So in 1587 comes the 3rd expedition, and this is the people that get lost, okay? 3rd expedition set out for Roanoke Island from 1587. The 3rd expedition and 2nd attempt at colony would be headed by John White, a gentleman and painter who had been at Roanoke Island with Lane during the previous attempt to create a colony there. So he saw how all the failures, and now he's in charge. Lane's not around anymore. White chose settlers for the venture that he believed would give the colony the best chance for success. There were 14 families. 4 included a mother, father, and a child. 6 were married couples with no children. And 4 were fathers and sons. Overall, there were 9 children, 17 women in the group. All of the colonists were expected to have some money for which to invest in provisions for the effort, and all 110 colonists made the journey across the Atlantic. So no more ex-soldiers who are volatile and bad. Let's be hospitable, nice families. That's smart. I think that was a smart move by John White.
That's pretty smart, and I've got another side story, which is a classic story amongst some of our friends from high school. Is we took civics. I still don't really know what civics are, but we took it. Crazy teacher in our high school. And he told this long, like such a long-winded joke where we're like, where is this going, dude? This is miserable. And then his big crescendo was, and then the guy says to me that his ancestor was a bachelor on the Mayflower. And he looks around the room just looking for laughs. And it's a bunch of like 15-year-old high school kids like, what are you doing, dude? Like, what does that even mean? And he's like, Oh, well, it's hysterical because there were no bachelors on the Mayflower. And we were like, A, we don't know if that's true. C, if it is true, we just don't care. That's not a good joke. But, I mean, delivered it like Seinfeld in his prime.
That's good historical humor.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that.
Great question by you, though. Like, what is civics? I just Googled it. The study of rights and duties of citizenship.
There you go.
Weird. Civics. All right. So John White shows up to Roanoke Island. He finds the fort that Lane had set up razed down. No sign of the 15 men who had been left by Greenville to watch over the settlement. They did come across a skeleton, which they believed to be the remains of one of the men left there. And the idea that the neighboring Indians were now extremely hostile to the English seemed to have been confirmed when a member of White's party, George Howe, was killed by Indians while he was out catching crabs.
Yeah.
The Indians are
worst.
Like, these motherfuckers again? What?
Guys, just no nets or cages. How are you not getting this?
We ran you out. You left 15 men here. We killed them. And now you're coming with a bunch of families and kids? We don't want you here, buddy.
No thanks.
Hi, what's your name? Oh, I'm George Howe. I'm just doing some crabbing. Pff, you're dead.
Dead.
Those are our crabs.
The crabs will eat you now.
How do you think White should have responded to this? He was there with Lane. He knew that situations were bad with the Native Americans. He knows that you have to depend on the Native Americans. So if you're John White, you land right away. Your whole strategy is not to be hostile. They immediately kill one of your men.
You got to go like peace offering. Like, hey, I should be pissed right now. You just killed one of my men, but I'm not, and I'm also willing to offer you this if we can coexist. Boom. Jake White.
That would be smart. That would be smart. White next sought to assess whether he could repair relations with the neighboring Indians and sent out a party under Captain Stafford and Manteo, a Croatoan Indian who lived with Lane's colony and returned to England with them. So this guy lived with Lane and went to England, so he's another like pocket Indian guy. Upon reaching the Croatoan village and meeting with its leaders, it seems that the Croatoans wanted to create guidelines for their relationship with the English. They asked Stafford and the colonists not to gather or spill any of their corn, for that they had but little. So like, all right, guideline number 1, don't fuck with our food. Smart guideline. The Croatans also confirmed that the Indians who killed George Howe were Roanoke Indians who were part of Pemisipan's tribe.
Back to Pemisipan.
Yes, he's an angry dude. Stafford and his men also learned the fate of the 15 men Greenville had left at the settlement. According to the Croatoans, these men lived carelessly and had made themselves vulnerable to an Indian attack. Like we said, they were just partying.
Right.
They were living carelessly.
England kind of screwed up on that one, to be honest.
The attack came when 30 Indians approached the settlement and killed an unarmed Englishman. A second escaped and managed to warn the rest of them, who took their shelter in the storehouse where the food and ammunition was kept. The Indians then set the storehouse on fire, and in the ensuing battle, the Englishmen, many of whom were injured, made their way to a boat and rowed out to an island along the coast. After that, they were never heard from again. What kind of blew my mind was like lighting the house on fire that all the men were hiding in. It's not like they just like had a blowtorch, Jake.
Right.
Like there's men inside a hut, and then there's a bunch of Indians banging rocks together and twisting sticks in their hand like, oh, we're going to get them. Oh, we're going to get them. Wait, hold on. Oh, hold on. Flame's getting bigger. Oh, we're going to get those fuckers. It's like, I feel like they could have known fire was probably coming.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, middle of the night, people are sleeping, you get the fire going, maybe get a little booze in the guys so they're sleeping better. I mean, the key there is I think you got to lock them in. Close the doors and windows.
Yeah. So when White heard about all this, he goes, yeah, we're going to have to kill one of the Roanokes for killing George Howe. We're going to have to murder those guys.
Eye for an eye.
He sent Captain Stafford and 24 men to the mainland to attack the Roanoke's main village. Just starting war right away. What a dumbass. Upon arriving, they saw villagers sitting around a fire and attacked, killing one villager and then pursuing the rest into the woods as they attempted to escape. The problem was that these were not Roanoke villagers, but friendly Indians from a different area, and the people sitting around the fire had included women and children. And one man saved himself by calling out Captain Stafford by name during it because they were friendly. So this third attempt or second attempt, whatever you want to call it, just dumb idiots.
Yeah. Just every series of unfortunate events has led us to a terrible place.
This would be a dumb slapstick comedy. You'd be like, no one's...
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, it would have to be just ridiculousness on ridiculousness.
No one's that stupid. Like, you're attacking Indians. An Indian man comes up and goes, Captain Stafford? Oh. Ooh. Are you not the Roanokes? We thought you were the Roanokes. We don't like those guys.
I'm almost picturing like an "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" vibe.
Yeah.
Like it's got these somewhat serious moments and just these ridiculous, silly moments that you're like, what is this?
So by this time, the 3 ships that had brought the colonists to Roanoke were preparing to leave, and the colonists were getting scared now. They're like, can we, yeah, we need help. We fucked up already. They asked James White to return to England to act as their agent. And they were really worried. And White was like, okay, I'll do it, but you need to put this in writing that I didn't desert you guys. I went there because you asked me to go there to get help.
Right.
All right, sure. So the colonists wanted White to return to England on their behalf, but at the same time, they were planning to move their settlement inland, a major undertaking that they were going to attempt to accomplish without their governor. Furthermore, White described a situation in which he had left an expedition and had some of his belongings stolen while he was away. So, like, they were already turning on White, kind of. Someone stole all his stuff. And when he left, he said, if you leave, they made a map, a set of keys to carve into the tree. Like, carve your next location. If you leave in distress, carve this signal. If you're fine, carve this signal, you know what I mean, in the trees. But also, Jake, in 1857, Virginia Dare was born and baptized in Roanoke, the first English birth in North America.
Hey.
Yeah, not bad.
We did it.
So now White left, and they have all these colonists there that just are like, fuck, we need to survive. Okay?
Sure.
White goes back to England. We don't know what the colonists did during this time because there's nothing. White goes back to England. He immediately met with Sir Walter Raleigh and began plans to return to Roanoke. They eventually planned to put together a fleet of 7 or 8 ships that would head for Greenville and would leave Roanoke in early spring of 1858. But ultimately, this fleet never left Roanoke. The imperial conflict between English and Spain reached a boiling point. As a result, the resupply fleet, along with all other English ships, were forbidden from leaving England and would be utilized to bolster its defenses. The colonists at Roanoke could not be resupplied. So the damn Spanish and their privateering gets in the way again.
I mean, everyone gets killed, right?
So despite the looming Spanish threat in 1858, White did manage to get permission to use 2 small ships from Greenville's fleet, and along with new settlers and new supplies, left for Roanoke in 1858. So he's like in the middle. He's like, give me your small boats. I got to go check on these motherfuckers in Roanoke to see if they're okay. However, the situation aboard these ships was complicated by the insistence of the captains and crews that they engage in privateering. Of them, the Brave ended up in an engagement with 2 French vessels, during which the English lost their food, powder, weapons, and all the supplies. Despite the setbacks, White continued to try to get on a fleet, so that first attempt failed. Privateering got in the way again. Yeah. He had another fleet ready to go, but it's unclear why that failed. And then in 1590, there was another ban on ships leaving, which enacted after fears of another Spanish attack on England, which White decided to ally himself with John Watts, a merchant and a privateer. He's like, I got to go check on these people. I feel so bad. Once White and the crew members reached the settlement, this is 3 years later, they found it completely deserted. Although the disappearance of the colony is now one of history's greatest mysteries, White was not entirely surprised by what he found at first, because he found no symbols of distress in the trees, no belongings left scattered about. Everything was packed up, so nothing in distress, and they probably left to go find a more suitable place to live. And if they did that, they were to carve the name of the new place in the trees. White found a tree with the letters CRO carved into it. Later, one of the entrances posed at the settlement, he found Croatoan carved into it. So that must be where they went. So he gets his buddies, like, let's go find Croatoan, see if they're there, and find out. Since they had carried away everything except for the large guns that would have been too unwieldy to take with them, the colonists also apparently buried White's belongings to protect them from both the Indians and the elements. So they knew he was coming back, so they buried his stuff for him. He found his buried stuff. That was nice.
Okay.
Yeah. The next morning, it was agreed by the captain and myself, with the master and others, to weigh anchor and go for the place at Croatoan where our planters were, for that then the wind was good for that place. Once again, however, White's plans went awry. Due to the stormy conditions and an accident in which they lost both their anchors and nearly wrecked their ship, they decided to return to the West Indies, get repairs, and then return in the spring. But White would never end up going back and going to Croatoan to find the settlers. And that is the last of it, okay? That's all we know.
Okay.
Jake. Now there's a bunch of theories. Time for the theories. You ready?
Theories. Let's hear it.
Okay. The question of what happened to Roanoke will never be fully answered because they were never seen again by Europeans, but that has only been fueled by speculation over the last 400 years. Some of the popular theories can be refuted, particularly the suggestion that the Spanish found the colony and killed everyone. In actuality, the Spanish continued searching for the lost colony almost as doggedly as the English, out of concern that the colony was still somewhere out there and posed a threat to their own privateering and worldly possessions. So we're ruling out the Spanish.
That could be a pump fake, though.
Oh, they just spent that
could have been the Spanish. We killed them, and then be like, "No, we want to, but we've never found them." And then they're like,
"We're still searching." Yeah.
Oh, we killed them. We killed
them. Upon founding Jamestown, the next settlement in 1607, like 20 years later, the settlers there heard stories about people who looked like them living with Indians along Chesapeake Bay. And Captain John Smith recounted a story in which Indians told him they had seen people who looked like the Jamestown settlers, leading Smith to believe that these were the lost colonists of Roanoke. They said they had yellow hair and reasonable white skin, which is a miracle amongst all savages, wrote that dude. All right. So Jamestown was like, they're out there. These Roanoke settlers are out there. They sent 2 expeditions south to try and find evidence that the Roanoke settlers were alive. But by the end of 1608, they had learned that the earlier colonists had heard rumors that they had all been killed, that they had made their way to Chesapeake Bay, where they had lived peacefully with Indians. So that's one theory, that they all got killed by Indians, which is plausible. We saw it happen to the 15 men. The other is that they left Roanoke and went to Chesapeake Bay, where they lived peacefully with Indians outside of the territory for a while. And then the rivals of those Indians came in and killed both that tribe and the Roanoke colonists who were with that tribe. And this happened right as the Jamestown people were arriving. They said that group of Indians had houses built with stone walls and one story above another, which is how the English built houses. This guy wrote that Powhatan himself had confessed to his role in killing the settlers to John Smith and had shown him their utensils. Even though they believed nearly all of the Roanoke colonists had been killed, the Virginia Company sent instructions to the leader of Jamestown to find the colonists who were believed to have escaped. They said some escaped. It was believed that the survivors lived roughly 50 miles from Jamestown, but apparently the Jamestown colonists never attempted to contact these survivors, and there is no explanation as to why. A historian has argued that the large majority of Roanoke colonists did indeed leave for Chesapeake Bay and ended up settling there. But he also speculated that the settlers probably left a holding party behind to look out for White and the resupply fleet and to guard the large guns and all that shit. Quinn believes it was this holding party, possibly facing the threat of Indian hostility, that left the Croatoan carvings at Roanoke and then went to live under the protection of the Croatoan tribes. So, a lot of different things here. There were some other like spooky things. A local legend in North Carolina holds that the Roanoke colonists survived and intermarried with neighboring Indians and that their descendants remain in the area today. The Lumber Indians of Robeson County, North Carolina, believe they are descended from the union of the Roanoke colonists and Indians. All right, so did they assimilate, Jake, then get killed? Did they assimilate and never get killed? Did they all get wiped out? Did a ghost get them?
You just dropped a ghost at the end there. Ghost theory doesn't seem fully developed.
There are other theories like that crazy. Theories like that.
I was hoping for the somewhat like that they all went different ways and all like assimilated with different Indian cultures. I'm gonna guess it's a little bit. I mean, they got killed. They all got killed. I'm gonna guess they buddied up with a tribe first because I like the fact that there were some English building remnants going on.
I love that.
And I definitely think I think there's some ancestors, but I'm gonna go like there's like 1 out of 10 was a love story. And then 9 out of 10 was like English rape.
This website has some of the more crazy theories because those were all sound because it was actual book. The colonists fell victim to cannibalism or practiced it themselves. They just got hungry and started eating each other. That would explain why no bodies were ever found. There has to be a last body. That one does nothing for me. The colonists were massacred by Chief Powhatan, who he said, yeah, they were hanging out with these other tribe and I murdered them all. I like that one. An infectious disease drove them mad. Always got to be a disease. Spanish troops murdered them. I don't like that one. I'm not going to give the Spanish any credit. They tried to sail back to England. What do you think about that? They were just like, we're gone. Lost at sea.
No. I mean, no.
If they were to just be murdered, there would be remnants. Like those 15 guys, there was remnants of them.
Why? Why does there have to be?
Well, do you think...
And I mean, what's remnants back then?
Do you think the Indians murdered them, then just cleaned up all their belongings?
Well, didn't we just say there was buildings?
That was in another area.
Okay.
So that theory is that they went and lived with friendly Indians and built and lived with them for like a decade, and then Powhatan came and killed all them.
A lot of moving parts. They got killed.
I like the theory that they just intermingled with people.
But I mean, like, there would have been remnants of that.
Yeah, you should be able to find it. Like
wouldn't we have stories about 10 Indian tribes in the mid-Atlantic that once we came into there in later years, they had, like, white people?
Well, that's what some of the people said in that story. Like, there was boys with white hair. When the Jamestown settlers came, they were like, hey, there's some Indians that look like you.
Yeah, again, that goes back to my 1% love story. 10% love story, 90% bad stuff.
I'm rooting that they intermingled. But that dude, Pemisipan, he's a son of a bitch. Like, if I know anything about Pemisipan, he wasn't going to, like, give up until they were all dead.
I hated Pemisipan.
Oh,
I
yeah.
Still don't really, I don't fully get him. I still hate him.
True
the
evil
name
guy.
switch, all of it.
You don't like the name change?
All of it.
Well, there's something cool about, like, changing your name when you're ready to go to war. Like Clay Matthews letting his hair down on game day.
Yeah, there's something to that.
So what's your final thing? My final thing is that Pemisipan got him. They might have left to go to the mainland. I think this Powhatan dude, he's taking Pemisipan's credit. Pemisipan was hellbent on killing these white people.
Sleeper pick, Spain.
No way Spain got him.
Spain just did it. And they like reported and they were like, oh, that little group they left over there, we just mauled them. And then the Spanish government was like, yo, that's bad. Like, they care about those people. And then they're like, well, nobody knows. And then everyone was like, all right.
We're going to send a party of 5, and they're going to go.
Blame it on the natives.
They're just going to fake look for them.
Yeah. Just continue to look for them.
I do like, if anyone asks you what you're doing, saying you're looking for the Roanoke colonists, but didn't we kill them, sir? But they don't know that.
Yeah.
I like that, Jake.
Neither do you.
I like that.
It's the dark horse, but I'm going with it.
The more interesting part to this story is just like how hard colonizing a new land is, but then also how dumb they went about doing it.
Right.
Like, just be friendly. Don't start with murdering people.
They totally blew the honeymoon phase.
Yeah, they did.
They did. Like, they had a chance, and then it just became too long. They were useless, and then it was like, all right, let's get hostile.
Yeah. They also sent such stupid scouts. The scouts were like, this place is Garden of Eden. It's wonderful. The first ship comes. They're like, we can't even dock here, bro. What are you talking about, Garden of Eden? So that's it. All right. Now we've solved it. I don't think we have 2 different theories on this one.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm admittingly going with the dark horse here. That the building seems to be the biggest hint, because you say there's no remnants. That is the remnant. We've got a building.
You're
remnants,
confusing
we've
it.
got
There's
a couple
2 areas. There's
right. I meant there is remnants. It's just not in the same area.
yes. So I'm saying that.
Like, I don't think the Native Americans just started building English style on a whim.
Yeah. So that takes out the theory that they were killed right then and there in Roanoke Island. So then if we believe in those houses, then we believe that they left on their own, which makes sense because there's no remnants of their belongings or anything. They definitely packed up and went somewhere. They lived with that other Native American tribe, being friendly, and then they all got slaughtered. And that's why you didn't see them in the future. Panhattan, or whatever his name is taking credit for that slaughter. I personally am saying Pemisipan slaughtered them because he was a dick.
Hey, Pemisipan. He's been my least favorite character from Laughs from the Past so far.
Wow. Out of all of Laughs from the Past?
Yeah.
I can't even try to think of everyone else, but what about the conjoined twins?
Oh no, that was awesome. It was great.
Okay. You disliked Pemisipan more than you disliked Stonewall Jackson?
Oh yeah. I didn't dislike Stonewall Jackson. I don't still fully believe the allure in people that like idolize him.
All right, tell us what you think happened to the lost colony of Roanoke.
Oh, I just said it like 5 times. I'm going dark horse Spaniards, but I think the evidence, if you were going safe money, you'd say they drifted down south a little bit, whether they were looking for copper or whatever. They built up a little bit and they got slaughtered. In the movie version of that, it happens like the day before they get back.
Nice. I was trying to ask the audience that, but I like that you got the movie version out of you as well. But audience,
Thanks.
You tell us what you think happened. You think it was Pemisipan? You think they just all intermingled, had babies with each other? That would be lovely. Didn't last. That's like too peaceful for how much the Indians and like the settlers like hated each other forever.
Right. I mean, we already admitted the settlers just killed the wrong tribe at one point, so.
Settlers were dumb as fuck. Lane and John White, big dummies. And that is the end of this episode. We'll be back next week with a sports mystery. Thanks for listening. See you later.